What does it look like when a culture is dying? Pop culture, is it dying? Are we amidst a culture shift? What does that look like?
But why, in the name of AWA, does this franchise have absolutely zero cultural footprint?
What are the twists and turns that have brought us here? Case studies.
Thus explaining the noticeable uptick in Cenat hate. Which begs the question, how will all this end?
How did we get here?
Today's episode is on, has pop culture died? Is there a culture shift going on? Most definitely in some ways, to answer shortly. But has pop culture died? Or is what we understand pop culture shifted, changed, metamorphosized? Or is it just a bunch of YouTube discourse nonsense? Maybe there's no real change. Depends on how you want to look at it. We will analyze, go through it, and explore it in unusual and exploratory ways. So stay tuned and let's get into it.
Before we get into the episode, please do me one massive favor. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe in order to not miss out on an episode. I'm going to need your support. So please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you enjoy any of these episodes. Thank you. So let's get into the episode.
Has pop culture died? In order to really understand it, you have to look at what pop culture was before. And it was essentially what people refer to as a monoculture. Now, monoculture really refers to the term that there was a singular narrative, a singular myth, a singular consciousness. Even that is an oversimplification of what was going on. But there was an idea. If you wanted to watch something, you had to go to a certain program. Nowadays, there's so many different ways to consume information that has led to overconsumption. Before, there was only a few critics. Now there's a critic on every door and street you can name it. That lack of a monoculture has created a fragmented state. It creates an echo chamber. There is something for everyone. In some ways, it's a brilliant thing. In other ways, it has created a lot of mess.
Things are changing. If you teleported someone from 10 years ago to today, their first impression would be that not much has changed. Phones got bigger, prices went higher, and GTA 6 still hasn't come out yet. But us who have actually lived through that period though, we know the truth. We know nothing is the same. A couple years ago, hip-hop was the biggest genre in the world. Now it's dead. Just yesterday, everyone was holding their tongue and staying PC. Now, nobody cares. Today I want to answer the question on everyone's mind. What the fuck happened?
I think one of the greatest signals of how we've lost our monoculture is the death of celebrity, the death of authenticity. What is authentic? I was on Instagram today and I just got lost on, I'm not gonna lie, AI girls. And I didn't even know they were AI girls until about the 15th reel. And I was like, these are all AI.
Whoa.
That tells you that we don't even know what authenticity is. We're now in an age where we have to literally question everything. I say all that to say that I think one of the prevailing points and places where this is articulated is Avatar. So work with me here. Way of Water, Fire and Ash and the original are all CGI. Sometimes when I was watching the film, I would be stuck and I'd think to myself, this is all CGI. Avatar is the biggest and highest grossing franchise of all time. It has 3 of the highest grossing films of all time. It has the highest grossing film of all time. Why am I bringing this up? Because there's a critique online, a very popular critique, that
Since The Way of Water dropped, and nothing. Silence. Where are the quotes? Where are the memes? Where is the lasting cultural footprint? Think about it. When Avengers Endgame came out, you couldn't go 5 seconds without seeing I Love You 3000. When the Star Wars prequels came out, as much as we hated them at the time, they gave us decades of discourse. Even Lord of the Rings 20 years later has a fandom so strong they can speak Elvish better than I can speak English. Those franchises live in our collective cultural memory. They occupy space in our brains. Avatar, in comparison, it just evaporates. It's like a fever dream. You go to the theater, you have your mind blown for 3 hours by blue people riding dragons, you walk out and poof, it's gone.
Avatar is overrated, overhyped, and in so many ways misunderstood by the mainstream. It has no cultural impact, is what people say, and that's due to the fact that there's not a lot of memes about it. Yes, people have reduced culture to memes, but I get what they're saying. There's a lack of discourse, there's a lack of comics and books on it. People don't want to dive into the world of Pandora, and it is somewhat ironic that the greatest part of Avatar, the greatest part of Avatar is its exploration into this world. It's an event. But I do think that critique is lazy. Now, I don't want to get into the minutiae of why I think it's lazy. I think Avatar is a good film for what it is. I don't think it promises to be this introspective, existential take on colonialism through avatars. It's not that. It's people say it's many people's critiques of it is that it's just dancing with walls. So it's either repetitive or it's not deep enough. That's the crux of people's issues with the film. My thing is, how many people have actually watched Dancing with Wolves? How many people have just gone there and just enjoyed the spectacle of it? The reason I use this as a launchpad to say that we are now in a hypercritical world, a world that I believe has a lot of lazy commentary for the sake of commentary, and misunderstanding of what culture is, how culture is defined. Is culture something that is just fast-paced, that is quick to consume, or is it slow burning, something that has changed the landscape of not only our ideas of what CGI can do, how films are consumed, single-handedly trying to keep the film business afloat? Isn't that culture? Isn't culture video essays and breakdowns about how it doesn't have the same cultural impact of maybe the Avengers? Isn't that a part of the circulation of the internet? That was a bit meta, don't lose me. But my point is, sometimes critique, in my opinion, has become very lazy. Critique doesn't have, funny enough, enough critical thinking, because there's a need, there's overconsumption. People want to feed the audience. I have, working in the background, a Jeffrey Epstein episode, and I felt like maybe this one should come out before this. Well, that one should come before this. But I wanted to give you something, but that just tells you that I'm hyper aware of how much people consume things fast. You see this in TVs, movies, that there is more TVs and movies, shows than ever before, and they all feel very flat, very hollow. And that's because we now live in a culture where there's something for everyone, but it feels like there's no imprint, there's no weight to it. It doesn't live with you the same. We can extend that to music, we can extend that to discourse. There's so much talk about how hip-hop is dying. Country music is the most popular music in the American charts as it currently stands. Is that just a shift? Is it cyclical? I believe it is. If you look at history, things have cycles. Rap is out of the mainstream cycle. But that talk is very prevalent. People talk about the numbers, singles not charting, and there seems to be a misunderstanding sometimes and a misrepresentation of it online, in my opinion, especially by people that are so-called experts. On top of that,
I mean, the numbers, the clicks, the attentions, the internet, they only pay attention to a video.
do you listen to music with a calculator? I mean that flippantly and seriously. I have never had a conversation so much before about how many streams, how many sales does this do? Back in the day, we asked, did we like it, did we not? And all of a sudden, I don't know when it happened, I feel like it happened post-COVID, we talk about the numbers and how well something does more than ever before. It's diagnosed to death, and I feel like that diagnosis also misses out the context. It removes the romanticism of the music, and it takes away from not only the art, but it's also, often, not always the case, removes the critical lens that numbers need to be looked at in order to put them in their correct context. Not every artist is Drake, not every artist is supposed to chart, not every single is supposed to chart. So there's a false diagnosis that's going on as well. To me, there's no place that it's more apparent than Cenat's recent fall, People have been calling that Kai Cenat's going through a slump. People have said that Kai Cenat is on his way to a fall. Kai Cenat is being called out by his audience. He's been called out for trying to learn how to read, to speak clearly. Wow, didn't know that was a problem. There are some truths to some of the criticism. He offered to make a house in Nigeria. People think it was virtue signaling.
I'm going to help you today, okay? I want to do as much as I can to help you guys and just be able to make sure you guys get better classrooms and stuff like that. Whatever they tell me you guys need, we're going to make sure you guys have good stuff, okay?
In addition to improving hundreds of lives, this commitment also worked wonders for Kai's reputation, as evident from the top comments under this video, reading, "The fact that he actually went into the slums and helped out the school there makes me respect him so much more. I'm a 45-year-old man, and it brought tears to my eyes to see that 23-year-old man ask for things for his students instead of himself. My respect has grown immensely for Kai and this trip." But then, over a year passed by, and Kai did not share a single update on how the school building project was going. This led many to question if any work was being done at all, or if the promises he made on camera were nothing more than PR stunts. The doubt reached its tipping point in August 2025, when an account named KickChamp made a tweet stating, "A YouTuber checked on the school Kai Cenat promised to rebuild, only to find no progress as it struggles to pay expenses and faces shutdown." The attached clip was from YouTuber Go With Ali, who visited Makoko a month earlier and featured a dilapidated school and orphanage in his video. An important thing to note here is that the facility shown in this video was completely unrelated to the one Kai promised to rebuild. KickChamp, whether by mistake or on purpose, framed it as if Ali was visiting the same school to highlight the supposed lack of progress. However, while the clip was misleading, the question this viral tweet brought up was not. Why hadn't Kai shared any update on the project he promoted over a year ago?
Some of the other claims I do question. They're very morally grey in my opinion. In some cases, there's just not enough information for us to make a moral judgment. But there seems to be this periodic moral audit that we do on celebrities, because celebrities dying, when you reach a certain level of fame, people get fed up with you. Some of these video essays talk about how people are connected to their original idea of who Kai Cenat was, the streamer, the relatable, likable guy. Now he seems like he's always changing, always shifting, depending on who's in the room. I'm shocked that people care this much.
All this end, his viewership doesn't seem affected for now. Mafiathon 3 is still pulling tens of thousands of viewers, and his YouTube videos are performing just as well. But that's the thing about slow, steady reputational damage like the kind Kai is facing. It doesn't tank a career overnight. Instead, it gradually makes people stop caring about the person they once supported. And without word of mouth or hype to bring in new viewers, it's only a matter of time before Kai starts to fade into obscurity and someone else takes his place as the hot new streamer.
But it removes itself from the fact he's as popular as ever. The numbers haven't changed, and that goes back to my false diagnosis. There is no fall. He has just reached a level of fame where the famous quote from the Joker,
"You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain,"
says it all. He has lived long enough now. He's been in the cultural zeitgeist, cultural algorithm for so long that he now splits opinion, but people still care because the videos still do well. So this thing that he's fallen is BS, and that to me shows how clearly some of the diagnoses are false. You can see this in the Drake versus Kendrick debate. People call for the fall of Drake. Drake still charts. Drake still does well. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bigger Kendrick fan than I am Drake, and I still listen to Drake. Two things can be true. People acted as if it was a civil war. There was a complete false diagnosis, but there was a need for people to hear the conversations, and some of the conclusions were just false. They were just wrong, quite frankly. This oddly led me to The Simpsons, and the Simpsons episode I'm gonna reference is Homer's Enemy with Frank Grimes. To give you a quick rundown, work with me here, it will make sense. Frank Grimes comes into town. He's hired by Mr. Burns because Mr. Burns saw his story of working hard through struggle, getting a degree, and becoming someone that represented the American dream. Hard work and perseverance prevailing through it all. He hires him in the power plant, and Frank Grimes, notices what anyone with two eyes would notice, is that Homer has somehow become a safety manager in a company which he shouldn't be a safety manager in. Homer is lazy, Homer is dangerous, Homer is absurd, and he's promoted by Mr. Burns. He tries to call it out, speaks to Lenny and Carl, and he goes mad. He goes mad because he cannot accept that the world doesn't see Homer as absurd. Many people say this is a critique of the American dream, how it's a falsehood, how middle America and working class call this behavior out and end up going mad because of it.
Never seen him do any work around here. I mean, what is his job?
Safety inspector?
That irresponsible oaf? A man who by all rights should have been killed dozens of times by now? You idiot!
There are deep critiques because of it. There's critiques of not only Homer, there's critiques of Frank Grimes. I think it's a beautiful episode, but the reason I bring it up is not because I think the episode is great. I think it actually mirrors what is going on today with criticism, cancel culture, and the lot. Think of Frank Grimes as the critique, the online critique, the person who virtue signals and calls out the moral mistakes of the other side. Often is right, often makes clear and concise points, but the obsession, the moral grandstanding ends up driving you away from them. Why is that? There's many reasons why is that, but I think it's symbolic.
And now, we take a short break from our program to learn the art of performative progressivism. Brought to you by Mint Mobile.
Welcome to today's video clip, how to be a performative good guy. You want status, you want reputation, and you want status. Okay, so for this strat, you're gonna need 3 things, okay? Twitter account, one of these glasses, and these are very important, okay? Specifically this shape. It has to be this shape. It has to be this shape. These glasses say you're harmless, you care about women, and you care about social activism. The very important step for this, okay? These glasses tell people you're an intellectual. All that's left now is the 3rd step, which is getting an internet connection.
I think it's symbolic of criticism without understanding that there is a level of absurdity to life. I think it's also symbolic when Frank Grimes tries to humiliate Homer, essentially cancel him through showing his idiocy. People were endeared to Homer in the crowd, and I think that mirrors cancel culture.
Agreed. First prize. What? Way to go, Homer.
You're #1, Homer.
But this was a contest for children.
Yeah, and Homer beat their brains out.
I can't stand it any longer. This whole plan is insane. Insane, I tell you.
Cancel culture often ends up backfiring on the people who are cancelling them, because human beings, we understand quite perfectly that people are flawed, and we end up calling out the canceller of the culture. It ends up creating subgroups for some people that are morally not grey but bad.
Is where we are canceling food. Last week they canceled Uncle Ben's rice. No beans, no rice. Trump doesn't even need to build a wall.
We're now beginning week 2 of the left's all-out attack on Joe Rogan.
The liberal mob's lashing out at Euphoria star Sydney Sweeney, calling her racist after she posted photos from her mom's 60th birthday party.
As we started getting deeper into the 20s, the dominance of wokeness in the mainstream and the aggressive tactics it used in eliminating its detractors sparked massive outrage on the other side of the political aisle. There was a growing rage from those who felt left out and ironically oppressed in popular culture. Zuckerberg became a red pill frat bro at 40 years old. Elon Musk buying X and making it a safe haven for the ostracized and the canceled.
Like wokeness basically wants to make comedy illegal, which is not cool.
Podcasts become the home of anti-wokeness, with most comedians pulling in millions of views while professing their hate for the social justice movement. Along with them, their audience started rapidly moving in the opposite direction. They too would be canceled and deplatformed, but the sentiment still didn't go away. Woke culture now had an enemy, which was climbing rapidly.
People end up defending them because they think it's unfair that they're being called out. that was one thing that Frank Grimes, I think, showed in that moment of madness. And you see it with people who constantly call out, maybe it's the left or the right, they end up seeing obsessed unwell.
The social justice movement went from rallying people towards a common goal to pointless exercises of power over celebrities and athletes who didn't pass the moral purity test. The moral standards would only go higher and higher as time went by, until even the people inside the movement couldn't live up to them anymore. At that point, the focus turned inward, and the progressive sphere started devouring itself from the inside out.
And I think this highlights one of my biggest points about cancel culture, that often it becomes weaponized. It's also toothless because most people aren't cancelled. It's only worked a handful of times. Secondly, not only is it toothless, often it ends up being weaponized. It's often very ego-driven. What I find is sometimes it ends up not cutting between white and black, not in a literal sense, but doesn't cut between bad and good. It ends up being weaponized by people where it doesn't fit the agenda of the day from the side that are trying to cancel the other person. There is no other place where that's more prevalent than the gender wars that go online. Now, the gender wars online, there's a whole episode that you can do on that. It's something that, to me, you could make a whole YouTube channel about the gender wars online, because it's a void. It's a black hole. It is something that does not stop.
Hook for child support. You want men on the hook for alimony.
You want men to not take responsibility for their own children.
Just because I had a black eye once and he cheated on me means I should leave him forever and break up a family?
Listen, if 2025 has taught me anything, it's that we are in a generation of lovelessness. Like, when I tell you we're losing the real lovers, like the real yearners, do you know what I mean? Like, we have been left.
I said in that is that there's only one thing all women want, and that is a man that they can never manipulate in any way, shape, or form.
We've all heard of mansplaining, but allow me to introduce you to she-laborating.
Oh, he don't love you, all this other shit. I just think he's like insecure, showing how he really loves. Like,
there is something for everyone. There's pick-me's that are always on the side of men. There's pick-me's that are always on the side of women, simping for simping's sake. There is false virtue signaling. There is men that are men, manosphere, red pill for men, red pill for women, tricking, pushing independence. You name it, there's something out there for it. And the reason it does so well, because it kind of does mirror the real world. Dating is at an all-time high. However, people are having more divorces, there's less relationships, there is an epidemic on loneliness. And we can't avoid that. There seems to be more discourse online about mental health, men and women. In some ways, it's, strangely, never been safer to speak about poignant, fragile issues. There's also a great irony to it, a paradox.
The dangerous thing about overly emotional men is that they're dangerous. They're genuinely dangerous. This is what's crazy. All these people who talk about toxic masculinity and how bad it is for men to be traditionally masculine. A traditionally masculine man does things he doesn't feel like doing because it is his duty to do them. He charges into the building because it is his duty. Not because he feels like it, because it is his duty. We're now teaching the new generation of men that they don't have duty and they can just act on their feelings and act how they feel, and they don't have to act as a man should. Do you know what happens when you get men who just act how they feel? You get school shooters, you get violence, you get rapists. Men who do not control their emotions are dangerous. If you find a man who is stoic, he's not going to hurt people. He's going to sit and think about his actions very carefully, and he's going to be a good man who protects and provides for his family. You find a man who just acts out on impulse and does whatever he feels like, you're going to find a dangerous man. Sitting here telling men to cry more and act with their feelings and it's okay to feel this way, that way, etc., and have no self-control. That is why we have the problems we have in the world.
And on the flip side, we also have something incredibly scary, which is that sometimes when people are really, really depressed, or even things like suicidal, they're actually really logical about it. And this is what's really challenging, is if you try to talk to these people, you'll oftentimes find that their logic is actually really sound. And even in the cases when it's not really sound, you can try to convince them otherwise, but it seems like you sometimes hit a brick wall.
And some people in the manosphere, even some women who are red pill content or independent women need to do everything themselves, call for a better time. Many people call for the 1950s, and it creates this nostalgia loop that goes on. And we miss out the one simple truth about nostalgia. It feels sweet, it feels great, it's a fantasy, it's a lie.
You know, nostalgia is denial. Denial of the painful present.
Oh, well, Gil is a complete romantic. I mean, he would be more than happy living in a complete state of perpetual denial.
Really? And the name for this fallacy is called golden age thinking.
Ah, touche.
Yeah, the erroneous notion that a different time period is better than the one one's living in. You know, it's a flaw in the romantic imagination of those people who find it difficult to cope with the present.
Nostalgia just isn't true. And I got that from Midnight in Paris. Watching it, it made me realize, and it made me reevaluate this whole episode, that there is an irony to how we look at not only dating, but nostalgia, these calls for something, for change, these calls for what we had in the past, and it kind of mythologizes the past and treats the future as if it's perfection just within arm's grasp, and neither of that is true. Like I said earlier, there's a paradox. It has never been safer to talk about delicate issues, whether that's mental health, whether that is relationship breakups. It has never been safer. It's also paradoxically never been more dangerous. The outrage lives online. I know you're going to think, how does they both exist? But you've seen it for yourself. Look in some comments. It has never been more divided. There will never be a time like this where you can speak so openly about relationships constantly for ages and make money online. That paradox extends beyond just dating. It extends to politics. It extends to movies. Like I said earlier, there's something for everyone. Like I said, Midnight in Paris, the film that I watched, was about nostalgia and the trap of nostalgia and how it fools us into believing that there is a time that was better. Every time looks back and says there was a time that was better. Or some people hope for a better time ahead, not realizing each time has something that it longs for and something that it hopes for.
What are you talking about?
Adrian, if you stay here though and this becomes your present, then pretty soon you'll start imagining another time was really the golden time. Yeah, that's, what the present is. It's a little unsatisfying because life's a little unsatisfying.
That is a simple explanation of Midnight in Paris, but it's the same. Some people call for a time where things were off the internet, things were real life. Do you really want to go back to that, where you could only rent a handful of movies for a movie night? You had a limited choice. Do you remember those times? DVDs where they got scratched? And that's me simplifying it. Yes, there were benefits when the internet wasn't around, but there was also many negatives. Like I said, it extends to politics. People call for a time for the Reagan era, Bill Clinton era. Really? No one really wants that. And the reason I bring this up is that trap of nostalgia, that trap of conversation that we have online. It just seems to circulate and it's not aware, and people don't talk about enough the paradox that lives within it, that we have never lived in a time, I repeat, that is quite like this. There is an absurdity, and it's so absurd you kind of have to take a moment and pause and laugh.
Now, that is absurd.
As I said, that absurdity lives within the LGBTQ community, trans community. It's never been safer to talk about that stuff. Also, you can be vitriol and ruined online. You can create a whole community about supporting them and a whole community about going against them. That is the age that we live in. And I do repeat that there will never be a time like that again. You see this with black issues. There's never been a safer space to talk about these black issues. There's never been a safer space for that to be in the mainstream discourse. And
down the street late at night, guess what you're looking for? Black people.
Yeah, it's never been safer to be an open racist. I can't believe I'm saying that in the same sentence. But the reason I'm making these points, and it might feel redundant because you're like, I get it. It's just to hammer home how paradoxical the world that we live in is today. And just to highlight the beauty of the age that we live in and the absurdity of it as well. And how don't look too far forward and don't look too far back. Kind of be aware of the madness that we're in, is that we live in existential crisis. We are in an economic recession, which some people refuse to accept. We seem like we're on the verge of an economic depression, pending war, bills, everything.
I've got nothing left.
And the world stopped and got hopeful on TikTok anyway. And for some people that is the world, but the world was hopeful and became inspired by a depressed penguin.
Caught our eye, the one in the center. He would neither go towards the feeding grounds at the edge of the ice, nor return to the colony. Shortly afterwards, we saw him heading straight towards the mountains, some 70 kilometers away. Dr. Ainley explained that even if he caught him and brought him back to the colony, he would immediately head right back for the mountains. But why?
Seems mad. Seems like I'm chatting shit, but did you find that motivational? I did. I hope you did too. But that's just how absurd the world is, and that's the paradox that we live in. And there is a beauty to that. There's a strange naivety to it and a scary naivety to it too. My final point before my conclusion is, well, I'm circling back to the Simpsons again. Same episode, Homer's enemy, Frank Grimes. There was one criticism that I think is kind of missed out from the commentary around Simpsons and that episode. There's loads of great videos on them. Go watch them. They're fantastic. But one thing I noticed that wasn't covered was Frank never went after Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns represents the system. He is the overlord. He cannot be made accountable. He cannot be questioned. He's the one that accidentally promotes Homer's incompetence. He's the one that off a whim hired Frank, and then off a whim wanted to hire a dog.
Your physics with a minor in determination.
That's the kind of man I need on my team, Smithers. A real scrapper. A self-made man like me. Bring this Grimes fellow to me. I want to make him my executive vice president.
Yes, sir.
Smithers, I've just seen the most heroic dog on television. He pulled a toddler from the path of a speeding car, then pushed a criminal in front of it. Find this dog. I want to make him my executive vice president.
Yes, sir. In the meantime, here's Frank Grimes. The self-made man?
What? Oh, yes, that fellow. Just put him somewhere out of the way and find that dog.
Yes, that is the same guy. He represents the system. He represents the things that we cannot question. And no one questions that. No one questions the system and the modus of operandi that created R. Kelly, where everyone knew he was an abuser and no one said anything until it was popular. Same with Jeffrey Epstein. The culture isn't called out. These are just two people that deservingly got cancelled, but the culture around it never was called out. Diddy's the same. How power abusers are allowed to run rampant without being called out. It doesn't get called out because there's no face. It is a system versus people. We are quick to call out the people, not the system that controls it. And why is that? Because it's easier. It was easier in the case of Homer and Frank, for Frank to call out Homer and his absurdity and then lose his mind because of it. It was easier for people to call out individuals than the system itself because it feels, well, faceless. It feels absurd, and they, in some ways, benefit from it. The same people who call out the lack of virtues in these individuals want to be protected by the same system that protected the virtueless people. Isn't that ironic? And that is probably the greatest tragedy of Frank Grimes and a lot of social critiques. Again, remember I said Frank represents a lot of commentary and social critiques of the time, where people become obsessive about people and not the system that is around it. Again, back to the Simpsons. How do I conclude? You see, I've always struggled with conclusions with these essays, well, video essays they're called, or breakdowns, whatever you feel comfortable with. I've always struggled. I sometimes feel like my conclusions morally grandstand way too much, which is, not good, because I've been criticizing that the whole time. Sometimes I feel like it can feel a bit flat for such a big problem. And I landed on this part of the Simpsons episode.
Never seen him do any work around here. I mean, what is his job?
Safety inspector?
That irresponsible oaf? A man who by all rights should have been killed dozens of times by now?
316 times by my count.
That's the man who's in charge of our safety. It boggles the mind. It's best not to think about it.
Be a bit more like Lenny and Carl. You see, there's a great wisdom to what Lennon Carl said. They didn't just say something dismissive, although you may have ignored it. Simpsons is very layered. It wasn't just, it doesn't bear worth thinking about that. You should have taken from it. They are selective in their seriousness. They are selective in when they choose to be wise. They were as smart and as hardworking as Frank. In fact, they had a master's, he had just a degree. They themselves realized have the absurdity of Homer. In fact, they had been documented it more. And I think a lot of people need to take that attitude on. Some things you just can't control. Some things aren't worth thinking about. There's an absurdity to life. There's an absurdity to the time that we're in. Don't get trapped in what was and what could be. Accept the absurdity and realize some things you just got to disengage with at some point. Spend less time offline. I don't want to preach because I spend too much time online, literally. To answer the question directly, has pop culture died? Are we amidst a culture shift? That's two questions actually. But anyway, yes, pop culture has died, kind of in the way that we thought of it. Monoculture's died. The idea of a singular culture, a singular conscious, it no longer is there. It's fragmented. There's loads of different subgroups and groups. And I think the internet has created that where everyone has a voice. And in a weird way, it's a better place for that. But anyway, are we amidst a great culture shift? Yes. And what does that look like? Right now, it's fragmented. It's a mess. People are saying wilder and wilder things. Authenticity is seemingly these days to be rude, obnoxious, and brass.
Walking down the street late at night, guess what you're looking for? Black people.
Anything else to if you come across too polished, you are fake. So what is next? Quite frankly, we don't know. And that's the exciting bit. I know it probably will mimic something of the past because the world is very cyclical. Someone once said to me, the future is the past and the past is the future. Overstand that. What do I mean by that? Basically, everything's in cycles, isn't it? What is in store for us next? We just don't know. And that's the beauty of being in the present. It's a little unsatisfying. It's a little bit unsettling as well. See, I didn't want to end on be like Homer, be like Frank, but just a little less serious. It was just be selective. Work hard, do your best, and sometimes just disengage. That's the honest truth. I hope you liked this episode. I hope it made sense. I hope I didn't waffle for too long. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And what does somebody leave my nose? I'm out.
And even though Frank's agonizing struggle through life was tragically cut short, I am sure he's looking down from heaven right now.
Change the channel, Marge.
That's our Homer.